Video games have been around for decades, and when it comes to game reviews, it is mostly up to a person's opinion. But there are some games that are so bad that they don't really have any redeeming qualities. We are going to be covering those games in this video. Keep in mind that some of these games aren't all terrible. Some might be fun, but every one of these games are flops. So here are the 10 biggest game flops of all time. E.T. the Extraterrestrial is the oldest game flop on the list. It initially came out in 1982 and was considered to be a bad game. It did so poorly that the game only lasted about a month on the shelves. Eventually, Atari actually admitted to burying over 700,000 copies of the game in a landfill. Too Human is an action roleplay game that was a game that released in 2008 for the Xbox 360. The game itself is pretty bad, but what makes this worse is the fact that the game was in development hell for about a decade. Along with the development issues, there was also a dispute with Unreal Engine that delayed the game even longer. Crossfire X is a first-person shooter game that has a single-player campaign and also has a multiplayer mode that is similar to Counter-Strike. If this game came out in the early 2000s, then it might have done a lot better, but the game flopped because it launched in a bad state and also was just not up to par to the other FPS games that came out at the time.
Got out.
Flash is alive, and he's playing for Team Brainiac.
Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League is one of the newer flops on the list. The game released in 2024, and as of this video, they stopped production on new content. The only reason they had to make new content is that they were obligated to make a year's worth of content, otherwise it would have been shut down a lot sooner.
Really? Why don't you just mail me the bullet? I'm the eye in the sky. Taking point for you, Shark.
Pulverize.
The Lord of the Rings Gollum is an absolutely terrible game. Not only is it an extremely buggy mess, it also is a bad game. There are people who finished the game, but most people who bought it ended up refunding it. There is also the Kong Skull Island game that came out around the same time, and that game also flopped, but we thought it didn't even deserve a spot on this list. X-Defiant seems like it shouldn't be on this list, but unfortunately it is. It is Ubisoft's first-person shooter game that is based on all their different biggest IPs. The gameplay is actually pretty fun, and it was talked about being the Call of Duty killer. Although it is fun, the game itself did terrible because of the choices made by Ubisoft and is going to be shut down in June of 2025.
Captain's own claim!
Anthem is one of those games that look amazing and had a ton of hype behind it when it released, but let everyone down once it was available to the public. The game looks fun from the outside, but it is a repetitive, unfinished flop of a game that most people didn't enjoy. It is one of those games that would be a good time waster if you can get the game for like $1.
Looks like we've cleared out the Scorpions. That will make it easier to continue the investigation.
Babylon's Fall is an action RPG co-op game that has you alone or up to 3 other players climbing the Tower of Babel. The game itself did so poorly that the game stopped any updates and content back in 2023. The game was repetitive and extremely buggy. The game did last a year though, which is something the final 2 games on this list would have loved to do.
Release the gut strings. No longer will you carry just one weapon. Now you will wield 4. The weapons are your choice. The enemies are not. Choose swords for close combat, to be fast and lethal, and easily combo light and heavy attacks. If you are surrounded, use the spectral attack, and then launch your enemy into the air. For even greater power.
The Day Before is one of those games that will go down as one of the biggest game flops in history. It was supposed to be a zombie survival game like DayZ, but it turned into an extraction survival game. It was actually the most wishlisted game on Steam for a long time, but the developers were lying about pretty much everything. The game is not available since they refunded everyone's copy and removed it from Steam. Concord is by far the biggest game flop of all time. It was supposed to be the new first-person hero shooter from Sony, but it turns out to be Sony's biggest money waster. They spent over $400 million to make the game, but ended up shutting down the game 2 weeks after its release because nobody bought it. Large companies never learn from their mistakes.
There's the cargo. Get in there.
Someone cover me!
The cargo is ours. Move. Extracting at Zone A.
If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Also consider subscribing if you enjoy our content. We have a ton of new merch designs on our website, so make sure to check those out. All links are in the description, and thanks for watching.